Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an action thriller film from 2008 titled Terra Nova. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. On the cold hills of a deserted island, a villain searches for a safe spot to camp. He walks for miles until he slips and falls into a freezing river. After floating downstream for a while, he finally manages to climb out and continue his journey. When exhaustion sets in, he stops to rest against a large rock, plucks a flower to eat, and begins to ponder. Back to how all this started. The villain is serving a life sentence in jail for killing 6 men. One afternoon, he is brought to the prison governor's office, where he is asked about his dreams. This is not an isolated occurrence, as other prisoners are also being called to the governor's office and asked the same question. Moriak expresses a desire to see the sea, while Yakut wishes to witness the war against China. Obasianka won't speak. Abazian wants to work in this prison and be a governor. Tolia wants to follow the progress of the space station, and Sipu wants to see women again. But Dylan's answer is never shown. The governor tells them they've been selected to be transferred to a penal colony, and shortly afterward, all prisoners are boarded into a ship, just like in the actual prison. The prisoners are divided into groups and put into cells, although Abazian acts like he is the boss, and even kills a man to take his bed. After the hatch is shut and the boat departs, the prisoners become anxious, fearing that they have been deceived and left to perish at sea. As the men grow increasingly aggressive, Dylan recalls a discussion he had with Sipa while they were in prison. Sipa, who suffers from severe mental problems, would often scribble on the walls and speak incoherently. However, on that particular day, he mentioned that heaven and hell were full, and a third realm, similar to purgatory, was being readied for individuals like them. Initially, Julien dismissed it as his typical nonsense, but now he's beginning to understand its value. Eventually, everyone settles down and attempts to make the most of the journey by engaging in conversation and eating. However, in the midst of the trip, a group manages to break free from a cell in search of their comrade. At first, Abazian starts negotiation, but ultimately ends up killing the individual they were seeking, triggering a riot. Prisoners on both sides begin hitting and killing each other, except for an elderly man, Star Yi, who remains in prayer. The fight doesn't last long, though. The guards quickly arrive, and after stopping them with a warning shot, they throw a sleeping gas grenade to knock them all out. Eventually, they make it to a deserted island, where the prisoners are put into numbered handcuffs and left at the beach so they can listen to what Mr. Olafsson and Marta, the heads of the Terra Nova project, have to say. Due to the worldwide abolition of the death penalty, prisons have faced a shortage of space to hold the increasing number of criminals. As a solution, the Russian government has allocated this land to start a project funded by various international organizations. Starting today, the prisoners are colonists living under their protection, and everything they need to survive is being provided, including food that should last 3 months. A satellite will be watching them all the time, and there also are some communication buoys around. They have the possibility to take a boat to one of them to press the red button and say what they need. If a green light appears, that means the request has been accepted. Abazian isn't happy about the idea of being recorded 24/7. So he throws a big rock in protest, but the guards quickly make him stand back with some warning shots. Mar explains that the buoys can also be used to ask to leave the project. Individuals must state their name and reason for leaving. If they choose to leave, they will be sent back to prison. Placing the buoys in the sea rather than on the beach ensures that individuals carefully consider their decision before attempting to board a boat. Before leaving, the guards scatter a set of keys on the sand, clarifying they are numbered to match their handcuffs. The prisoners rush towards them and start fighting over them while Dylan and Sipa stay safely behind, only grabbing the keys that the others drop. Steri also decides to stay behind and watch how a gang forms a line around the keys to keep their rivals out, and a group goes to the crates the guards left to pick up some weapons and attack the crowd. Eventually, Ali's gang takes control of the situation. Ali gets a jacket and good shoes for himself and Starry before choosing a man to send out on the boat. But as soon as he grabs someone, the group takes the chance to attack, and the fight starts again. Dozens of men die in the fight. Moriak kills Ali with a rock. Abazian kills Starry, also with a rock. And the 3 men that get on a boat to reach the buoy fall to the sea and die drowning. All the remaining prisoners go to the warehouse and begin distributing the supplies, and Abazian takes advantage of the tools found to get his cuffs open by force. Villain packs a bunch of supplies in a bag and grabs himself a jacket while listening to Sipa say there is no way the food will last 3 months. Then he leaves the area to survive on his own and hopefully find a way out of the island, taking us back to the beginning of the story. Villain explores the island until he finds an area with no snow and a rocky formation that will provide some shelter. So he decides to sit there while looking at a picture of his family that he's kept hidden in his prison uniform. He misses them terribly and falls asleep with tears in his eyes. Sometime later he wakes up when he hears some squealing. Turns out the supplies were filled with rodents, and they are now eating through his food and bag. When it starts raining, Dylan finds shelter under the rock formation he saw before getting a fire going for warmth and heating some water. After the rain stops, Dylan catches a bird and roasts it over the fire. That's when Sipa shows up. As he chit-chats with him, Sipa tries to steal Dylan's knife, but Dylan catches him and takes it back. Sipa offers some salt and his help in exchange for some meat, which Dylan accepts. While Sipa goes to gather more wood, he sees a family picture of Dylan hanging on a rock, which prompts him to blow a kiss at Dylan's wife. Later, they divide the bird between them, and once they finish eating, Sipa goes towards the cliff and admits he doesn't jump because he's too afraid. He questions Dylan about his reasons for not wanting to die, and Dylan explains that he wants to be buried beside his deceased family, which wouldn't be possible if he died on the island. The two men drift off to sleep, and when Dylan awakens, he discovers that Sipa has taken the picture to use it as inspiration for his debauchery. Dylan, filled with anger, pushes him off the cliff. However, Sipa's life is spared as he doesn't plunge into the ocean, but instead lands on a hill directly below. Despite their dispute, they continue their journey together, exploring the island. Sipa entertains himself by discovering discarded items in the water, while the villain attempts to catch fish. But the only living creature they find in the water is an aquatic centipede, which terrifies Sipa. While looking around, Dylan is surprised when he stumbles upon a seaplane wreckage while exploring. As he continues uphill, he discovers the complete plane, which brings him hope as he used to be a pilot and could potentially fly it. Unfortunately, two people cannot move the plane, so they decide to return to their shelter. Later, the villain starts a fire using matches he found in a warehouse, but these matches produce a highly toxic smoke. He moves away from the fire and pulls a sleeping Sipa along, who initially doesn't wake up. Dylan shakes him a few times until he finally regains consciousness, but he continues to speak incoherently, and Dylan realizes that the cold will kill them any minute now. The two men agree to return to the base and see if they can steal some coal. Back in the base, life hasn't been easy for everyone. Abazian and his gang are in control and keeping a routine while sharing the supplies, and Abazian even asks them to call him governor, but they keep anyone that isn't in their team inside the barracks. They only allow them to come out to have a walk in an enclosed area similar to real prisons, while Astanitz yells at them from the watchtower. When they're sent back, they need to run, because whoever is last gets killed to be used as food. Later, Villain and Sipa manage to reach the coal box and find the remains of a fire. After walking for so long, they're almost freezing, so they can't help laying down next to the fire and falling asleep. But Sipa wakes up quickly when he hears some noises. The gang is coming over with their latest prisoner for roasting. He runs to hide behind a rock, but Dylan is still out there, so he comes back out to rescue him, but he isn't fast enough, and Abazi's men find them and capture them. After being brought back to the base, Abazian decides the punishment for the two individuals who had fled with supplies upon their arrival. Yukut intervenes, reminding Abazian that they were on their side during the ship fight. However, Estanitz insults Yukut. He retaliates by striking him. Consequently, the entire gang joins forces to retaliate against Yukut, resulting in his placement in the barracks alongside Dylan and Sipa. After walking around for some time, Estanitz declares it is time to go back. However, Dylan decides to stay behind while Sipa returns and drags him inside with him. They observe helplessly as the final standing man is captured and bound to a pole, begging or water as his final wish. Moved by pity, Sipa offers him a cup to drink before he is executed. Later, before going to bed, the group discuss the potential of staging a rebellion. They're unsure because it may be dangerous, but Shram convinces them it's worth trying. The next morning, Tolia shows Abasyankit that he's installed a secret trap in his workshop to catch any potential thieves. After the group takes his daily walk, Astanitz tries to get them back inside to get the usual game going, but only two men run. The rest stand back and come together, while Yakut throws a rock at Estanitz to shut him up. Dylan walks up to Abazian and offers him a deal. If he lets them go to the buoy and ask for food, he'll tell him the location of the plane he found. Abazian accepts and opens the gate to let them out, while Tolia and Thylan go with two other men on the boat. Abazian asks his men if they know anything about Thylan, and that's how he learns he was a pilot, that his family died in a plane crash, and he went to jail for killing flight dispatchers at the airport with a rifle. This crime was classified as murder in a state of severe emotional agitation, which Abazian thinks means Dylan has a guilty conscience. As soon as the boat is far enough, he orders the group to go back to the barracks, cancelling his deal. Yukut tries to confront them, but he's immediately killed. So Abuzian grabs one more man before declaring the game is on again. The group can only run back to the barracks, since a fight would be a very bad idea because Abuhan's men are armed. Meanwhile at sea, one of the men falls off the boat, but they catch him just in time and drag him back up. Tolia reaches the buoy and asks for help, but it's broken and not even his tools will help. They go back to the shore, and Neelan tells Abazian that food is on its way. But Abazian doesn't believe him because there wasn't a green light of confirmation. Tolia reminds him of the existence of the plane, but Abazian doesn't believe that's true either. But it inspires Obizyanka to move around with his arms open like one. Abazian finds this distracting and grabs him by the neck, so Tolia uses the chance to come at him from behind and kill him. Two other members of his group, Amerbek and Ertsunov, kill the rest of their gang and watch Estanitz run away before they can catch him as well. They ask Dylan what to do next, and he asks them to free the men from the barracks because he swears food is coming, and they just didn't see the light night because it was broken. The men are skeptical about this and remind him now they have plenty of bodies to feed on later, but Tolia thinks they should be buried. Dylan reminds him about the plane as well, so Amerbek and Ertsunov finally accept. They free the prisoners and tell them they'll be waiting a few days for the food to arrive, but they won't be using each other as food anymore, so everyone needs to stay calm and cooperate. They'll also send a group to rescue the plane, which they'll put in a hangar they'll build and slowly repair it to escape later. Suddenly, Sipa interrupts their plans, claiming there's no satellite, while writing an SOS message using sand and 3 bodies. Sometime later, Estenitz returns to the base, and because of the new rules that say they need to keep the peace, they decide to ignore what he's done to them for now, and share their food with him anyway. Dylan guides a group of men towards the plane, and their moods greatly increase when they see he's been telling the truth. Together, they take it apart for easier transport and carry the pieces back to base. Eventually, Marta arrives at the island with a bunch of guards. They use gas to keep the men away, but they do allow Villain come to talk to her and discuss the list of things they've requested. She's confused on why they're asking for gas, and he explains it's for the generators, which are supposed to be wind-powered, but they don't work during the polar night. In truth, they want the gas for the plane. Dylan takes the chance to ask why they didn't answer Sipa's SOS message, and Marta explains their satellite is of the infrared kind. They see heat, so they can locate people and stoves, but not words. She also wants to know what people were doing so far away from the base some days ago, and he tells her they were fishing. They don't believe him because there's no fish in the area, so he lies again and tells them they've been eating those centipede-like creatures, which she finds very shocking. They also want to know how many of the original 206 colonists are left, which Dylan finds suspicious because they should be able to tell with their satellite. He tells them 87 are left and many are sick, but nobody wants to abandon the project and return to jail. Before Dylan leaves, Made tells him he has the right to one personal request, so he gives her a few sheets of paper, asking her to provide the group well. Once the guards have left the new supplies, Villain and his men try the gas in the plane hidden in the hangar and happily confirm it does work. Afterward, they watch a new group of American prisoners arrive as the guards and Marta leave the island. These prisoners have a leader too, very large man that Dylan tries to shake hands with. The man doesn't take it, in fact. He hits Dylan, which triggers a fight between both sides. The encounter is brutal, and nobody hesitates to go for the kill, so Sipa drags Dylan with him to hide him in the workshop. One of the Americans tries to follow them, but he falls on Tolia's trap and instantly dies. Ertsanov goes up against the American leader and gets overpowered, but before he can get killed, a Marbek cuts in and kills the big man instead, as the buildings around them catch on fire. All this is being watched by the heads of the project. When they realize the situation is finally out of control, and that over 40% of the colony has been killed, Marta calls the central office and is told to proceed with code Naked Island, which sends a bunch of guards to the island that shoots all the reminder prisoners while Marta burns Dylan's letters. Luckily, a few men are still alive, thanks to having hidden in the mountains or the hangar. Villain, Sipa, Ertsanov, and Tolia together, they push the plane out. But when they're about to board it, Sipa tells them goodbye and runs to the hill so he can jump into the ocean. Not afraid anymore, the remaining trio gets in the plane, and Dylan manages to make it take off safely, although the guards shoot at them on the way. His 2 companions die, but Dylan isn't hit by the bullets, so he flies away into his freedom,